when anyone mentions your name, they all talk about you. You know, they don't really talk about what they should talk about, which is what we've just talked about now. Everyone straight away goes, "Oh, John Sitton, legendary rant, unbelievable. Everyone's seen it." And like, let's be real. You say you wish you wouldn't have. You wouldn't have. Like, what is your kind of thing looking back at that now? Like, I mean, it's absolutely epic in terms of the actual rant itself in the training ground. You've obviously skipped over your time at Leighton Orient, really, which I think is probably where 6 years, you'd say you're probably the longest. You got your, 174 appearances I'm looking at now is 7 goals. And then obviously you go into, from there, you're at Slough, and then you go to Leighton Orient as a kind of the manager there, taking over. Looking back at that now, that rant, like, I love it. I think it's class because I think it's raw, it's passionate, it's from the heart, and I think it's
Yeah.
class. And everybody would agree with me. But what has your life been like since then, like moving forward? Because people always talk about it, don't they? Since, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's right. But okay, I'll give you my honest opinion now. I know I was better than that. I do agree with you. It was from the heart because it was. That's how I am. That's how
Yeah,
I trained. That's how I played.
yeah,
I made the mistake of thinking people would approach training and playing the way I did.
right,
Even if we were down to, see, what you've got to realise is, um, the summer I took over 90, leading up to the summer 93, 94. I'd been youth coach for nearly a year,
yeah,
and I got the call. I'll get home. So my routine, which Eustace was taking the piss, 280 quid a week. So Monday all day with the youth team, because I bought in a culture shock. You're going to train morning and afternoon. With regards to the duties, we'll keep them to a minimum. I will also muck in and help you. So I was back to being an apprentice at Chelsea, helping them like sweep the dressing rooms,
wow,
clean the baths, all that, because I wanted them to go home and put their feet up. And it was about maxing out the time that we could train and keeping the duties to a minimum. So I decided to muck in, right? So that was that. That was Monday. Monday night, I'd be at the Centre of Excellence. Tuesday, same again. Tuesday night, if there's a first team game at home, we've all got a report and we've got to do the duties and the cleaning up after. That's
yeah,
after a full day's training. Wednesday, same again. And Wednesday night, there would be a reserve team game, which inevitably I was involved as a coach. Thursday, they would have a day off, but I had to come in and fill in the reports, which was YTS scheme. So you had to fill in progress reports on a weekly basis. Thursday night, I'd be at the
right,
Centre of Excellence. So I'm hanging around the ground. I'll maybe go for a jog, do a few stretches, getting ready to go to the Centre of Excellence and coach anything from under 16 to under 11. Friday, we'd turn up. Inevitably, the manager would want to use the youth team as passive opposition to rehearse what the first team are going to do.
mm-hmm.
Then after that, I would say, right, well, now we've got to do our session and we've got to get ready for the game tomorrow. Right. So we'd do that, do the duties,
Yep,
go home. Saturday, we'd turn up, play the youth team game.
yep,
Sunday, I would be asked to come in and work with the injuries, the players who hadn't played, players coming back from injury to try and improve their fitness or give them a little blast if they hadn't been selected. So I was working 7 days a week for 280 quid before tax. Right. So then 93, 94. Okay. I don't know if you remember this and your listeners. The divisions were being restructured because they were cutting the Premiership down to a new Premier League of 20, down
20,
from
yeah, from
yeah,
22, yeah,
so
yeah,
down from 22. Well, what happened was that had a knock-on effect through the divisions,
of
and in
course,
our division we were 5th or 6th from bottom, and in our division 4 were going to be relegated. So I returned from the Centre of Excellence one Thursday night, and my missus is like, "Are you all right?" So I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You have a good session?" I said, "Yeah, it was fantastic." So I said, "We had a good. The boys were good tonight. We enjoyed it." And you try and make it enjoyable while giving out good information, depending on the age group. I'm a great believer in the younger they are, the more you should just let them enjoy it, and then gradually introduce stuff. Right?
yeah,
Um, she goes, the phone ain't stopped ringing. So I went, "Well, from who? What's happened?" So she said, "I think they've sacked Eustace." She said, and all the different members of the board, they've been ringing you, right? Anyway, the phone rings inevitably about 9 o'clock. Peter's gone. We want you to take the first team tomorrow. Sits, we need you. We could get relegated. Anyway, we go in. There's a big thing in the next day. Bernie Dixon, who's passed away recently this year. Everyone was at his funeral. Unbelievable turnout. Lovely man. He says, I want you to stay with the youth team and the youth setup. He said, so the vice chairman, Derek Weinrape, he says, no, we need him with the first team. He said it's a shambles. He said, I'll tell you exactly what happened. He said, with Eustace, he said, look, have you got confidence in me to finish the job, gentlemen? Yes or no? And they said, well, quite frankly, it's a unanimous no. So he said, well, in that case, the next time you speak to me, it'll be through the League Managers Association and my lawyer. He shuffles his papers, pushes his chair back and walks out. Keeps the club Merck, which his son-in-law ended up, or his eldest daughter's boyfriend ended up settling the lease on it and put it on his car front in up north somewhere. He ended up becoming the highest paid gardener in Loughton for the next 15 months. He had 15 months left on his contract. So then I took over, and we got the points we needed to stay up. Well, that's when the alarm bell should have rang, because I think we got 1 win and a draw, or 1 win and 2 draws out of the last 5 games. The first game was away to Huddersfield. Manager was Neil Warnock.
Wow.
We got beat 1-0, but we really outplayed them. But that's when the alarm bell should have rang, because there was no goals, which it's been a common theme from my time at Chelsea through to not so much Millwall, definitely not Millwall, because you had Johnny Lyons, John Mitchell, and a good contribution from the wide players and midfield players, and people like me coming up from set pieces. Gillingham, very much the case. If we'd have had a goal scorer, we would have absolutely run away with the division. Leighton Orient in particular, apart from one season where Paul Shinner's got about 25 goals, but we had problems scoring, and then that's when the alarm bell should have rang. But loving the club, having been there 10 years, this was me coming up to my 10th year. I took the job on a handshake. The players were canvassed, and they said it's been a breath of fresh air. We feel more comfortable. We feel more organised. It's enjoyable. We want him to have the job. Then I'm told the club's hemorrhaging 10 grand a week for the last 4 years. This will be the 5th year. Ergo, £520,000 per annum. You've got to cut the playing staff from 28 to 15.
Oh my God.
And I ended up with 17, but that included 2 goalkeepers. One of the goalkeepers was my co-manager, Chris Turner.
Oh yeah.
Who actually was struggling with a hernia. So if Paul Hill got injured, we were struggling big time. We wouldn't have had a goalkeeper, because we had to let. There was another kid, Paul something. We had to let Paul Newell. We had to let him go.
Okay.
Yeah. So we literally had 15 outfield players. So I'm going in every board meeting. We need players. We've addressed this part of the club. We've saved 38 grand on the budget at youth level. We've saved We've let a load of scouts go at this level. We've married youth team players to pros who ain't played to form the reserve side. We've made cuts behind the scenes with staff. I've let 13 players go, but I need to replenish the squad. And all I kept getting was from Tony Wood, who was the then chairman. I can't do it anymore. I've underpinned the club's losses for the previous 4 years. I made Frank Clark managing director. We were meant to place the accent on youth. We were meant to build it up like the Orient of the 70s, where they had the Shadozis, the Banjos, the Utons, the Bobby Fishers, the Paddy Grealish, your Mayos, your Roders. You had all them coming through. And he said it hasn't happened. So he said, my business has been decimated. Now, this is what you could right at the start, before I've gone into this like long diatribe, right? There was, it was the start of the Rwandan civil war. And he had a coffee plantation then in Rwanda, right? And that's where he was earning his money. So he was like honorary British consul or honorary British ambassador. He had the plantation. He'd been working 38 years, something like that. He said, and it's been decimated. And he said, my business is finished. It's ruined. It's decimated. And you had this genocide. And I've had people working for me over 30 years. He went back. He had to be smuggled out by the United Nations. He come home. He's shell shocked. He said, but I've got to go back. and I've got to try and get people out if I can help. I've got to see what's left of my business. He said, and there was literally, he went to me, John, he said, there's people floating face down in my pool. He said, they just ransacked me home. And he said, well, I can't say face down. He said, they would just had their heads cut off and their arms cut off with machetes. He said,
oh, mate,
I've got to be honest. He said, I know you're struggling, but I can't commit to you. He said, because football really, he said, it's nothing compared to this. I said,
no.
I agree. I said, I
Yeah.
agree. But then you get people come in. I mean, he's just recently been on a podcast, Barry Hearn, to promote his book. Told probably not the first time, probably won't be the last, particularly where I'm concerned, told a blatant lie. Said that he saw me work with the youth team because they went all that like, now today's guest is Barry Hearn, blah, 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 and bring your dinner. Well, they're trying to break the ice and crack a joke and just start off light-hearted and all that. And so tell me, how did you get on with dealing with someone like John Sitton? And then he goes into this thing, well, I saw him work with the youth team. And he said, I looked at it and I just thought, well, that's not me. That's not my style. He said he was a bully. Well, listen, this is the lie. He never, ever, 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 not once saw me work at any level as a coach, whether it's Centre of Excellence / Academy, whether it was the youth team, reserve team or first team, all the jobs that I was doing. I was also ended up being a scout. I don't know why, because the PFA were paying the wages for like 8 months. We were on the brink of administration, and that was going to fast forward to bankruptcy. I was also ended up as commercial manager because we never had the money to pay the milk bill, and I needed money for us to have a coach and an overnight stay in Stockport to fulfil a fixture. When with the benefit of hindsight, I should have sat back, relaxed, and said, let the club get fined 30 grand because we can't fulfil the fixture. A club that's losing 10 grand a week, by the way. But the bottom line is this, right? He never saw me work once at any level. And with regards to the dressing down, he obviously didn't understand dressing rooms as they were at the time for the previous 50 years. You know, you listen, they talk about psychology. They talk about, if someone challenged my professionalism or my commitment or my ego or my pride or my manhood, like Frank Clark did on a weekly basis, to the extent where I'm fed up using Frank, I'm fucking fed up you using me as a verbal punch bag. Sits, I've got to. You're my man in there. He says, if I dig out and he start throwing names about, they would crumble. When they look at you getting man of the match, when they look at you getting player of the month, when they look at you, the way you're playing and how consistent you are, they're thinking, wow, if he's digging Sits out, where does that leave me? So I don't even have to talk to him. I said, yeah, but just tone it down a bit. Right?
Yeah.
And leave me alone. All I want to do is be left alone. That's all I said, because I know what I've got to do. I know the game. And you become like a player coach. You know, you're bossing, organising, making sure the structure's implemented, which is, I'm looking at so many clubs now. So many clubs lack leaders now. But yeah, no, just a blatant lie. He never saw me work at any level. So how can he call me a bully? Because he's only seen what other people have seen on the documentary. And that was like three bollockings in 10 months, right? When Frank Clark ripped into people on a weekly basis. If it weren't on the Tuesday, it was on the Saturday. He might have a day off. You know what I mean? And not bollock you on the Tuesday, but you're definitely going to get, someone's going to get a bollocking on the Saturday. And he said, yeah, well, I thought he was a bully. Well, that's because in my book, I told the truth. He'd promised me a 3-year deal. He said, but if I don't see a massive improvement, expect to suffer the consequences. I said, look, he said, you got any ideas? I said, yeah, I've got a portfolio on how the club needs to be. I've made start already, certain areas, on how the club needs to be restructured, what needs to be implemented. And he put a geezer in, which was very undermining, really, called Bernard Goodall. He followed us everywhere. He followed us to the train, or he took us to the training ground. He watched training. No football background, just a company troubleshooter. He was in pre-match team talks, half-time team talks, full-time summaries, and it was totally, I would never stand for it now. But he promised, he said, you suffer the consequences, and I said, fair enough. He said, but I might be looking for a porthole myself. He said, if it don't turn around within the next 18 months, I said, all I want is an idea. Is the time to try and implement what I want, which are my ideas to restructure the club from bottom to top. because it had to be the foundations that had to be put in place. And that was that. But the lie comes in where he never ever saw me work once. He never saw me coach once. He never saw a pre-match briefing, a pre-match meeting, an half-time team talk, or a full. He's only seen what went out on air.
Thing is, did you think when Barry Hearn, because he obviously hired Pat Holland when he got, did you think he was going to retain you? Or did you know he was going to go like he's going to?
I thought he was going to. Like I just said, Dan, he promised me a 3-year deal, and then he reneged on it.
3 years, and you.
Yeah, what happened was we got beat at home to Brentford. The door comes crashing open. He walks in. Well, before that, the door had come crashing open because me and Chris Turner used to share the same office.
Yeah,
and that's all right. Don't bother knocking. The door came. He said, "Right, I'm the new owner now. The paperwork's done." It was very crass what he said. The other geezer's done his dough. He's out. He said, and with regards to the other members, the other directors, if they don't bring anything to the party, they're not on the board. Which I thought fantastic, because too many had got away with not putting any money into the club.
right.
And I said to him, Barry, what you've got to understand, and I've been proved right, because like last year they went 4 million over budget. I said, this club is not an economically viable football club. It's like which is how the documentary came about. I said, we're London's poor relations, and if you drive as the crow flies to the north, you've got Spurs, then Arsenal, and then West Ham are 5 minutes to the east. Then you go through the Blackwall Tunnel, you've got Millwall, then Charlton. Palace and Wimbledon don't really affect you in terms of gate, but those other clubs do, and they're all bigger clubs. So at the time, we thought it might be a good idea to get some exposure for the club. And instead of being a documentary about what was going on behind the scenes and what we were trying to put in place and trying to build and the structure we were trying to put together, it ended up being a documentary about me and about the players that were left behind. And all right, okay, I made mistakes, which I'll own up to. There were people like the best goalkeeper outside of the top division, Paul Hild. I never gave him enough praise or encouragement. I never gave him enough days off, actually. Ian Endon, Gary Bellamy, Darren Pearce, Kevin Austin, rest in peace, Glenn Cockrell, Ian Bogey, Mark Dempsey, Colin West. I never gave him enough praise. I just lumped them all in with the people who had already capitulated, and I regret that, because I thought the world of these boys. I really did. And what it is with me, Dan, when I form a bond if I form a relationship with a teammate or a friend, there's an element of love involved, right? And that's how I felt about these players. And I regret to this day what I did, that I never praised them enough. I should have done. And I should have made them exempt because they went above and beyond the call of duty. Then you got morons who I rescued from Spurs, which I won't name. And I gave him an apprenticeship, and then I gave him a 1 year pro deal. And then he's like latter day on the Orient Hour on some Essex radio station. How did we go down? I went, oi, you. I said, I'll tell you how we went down. Basic necessities of a club, like discipline, off the field toxicity, white noise, lack of goals, lack of competition for places. That's how we went down. Too many individual mistakes, too many errors where people had lapses of concentration, not defending as if I did, as if your life depends on it. That's how we went down. So with what I've done for you, and I even took him with me to certain non-league clubs to bump his wages up. I said, mind what you say, son. So now he's part of their TV station, because I think he thinks he's going somewhere. But anyway, that's football for you. It's full of look after number one and treachery and all the rest of it.
Mate,
if you listen, if you say if I say I'm going to stand shoulder to shoulder with you like I did with teammates, and it comes on top, I'm not going to be the one to turn tail and run. I'll stay shoulder to shoulder with you. You understand? And it's sadly lacking, I think, in this day and age. But what happened was I put the final nail in my own coffin. When I had the meeting with Barry Hearn, I said, look, I've got one or two bits and pieces I want to make. And what frightened him was I wanted a scouting network that was competitive. Like I said, there's an air of resignation. I said, ideally, I want to float. He went, what? I said, I want to float. I want money. I want enough money to be able to offer someone a car so we can sign their kid, or enough money to give someone an envelope like was offered to me by Crystal Palace, by QPR, an inducement by Arsenal, albeit not a lot of money, and it paled into insignificance to what I was offered by QPR and Crystal Palace. I was offered money by someone supposedly representing Leyton Orient, someone supposedly representing Spurs. I said, if you're going to compete and build a club from the bottom up, I said, you've got to be in the marketplace with a decent scouting network. So here's the thing. I want the scouts and the coaches involved at academy level, centre of excellence, which would now be an academy. So if a player signs schoolboy, those people working on him from under 11, I want them to get a little bonus.
Yeah.
I think it was 250 quid. If they sign apprentice and they're working with them from 14 to 16 and they get offered an apprenticeship, I want them to get 500 quid. If they get to sign pro, I want them to get 750 quid. Because all that work, apart from the weekly expenses or the little wage, which they weren't getting paid, right? So I let all the Sunday morning managers go, bless them, and I got all full coaching badges who I knew on the circuit, and I knew they were going to get, the kids were going to get quality assured information, good work, good light-hearted sessions, full of humour, people like Mickey Payne, people like Stevie Embleton, who was the dad of one of Orient's managers recently, people like this, right? And I made sure they got a check every month to cover their time. Well, that wasn't the case before, and they were all full badges. And I said, but I want them to get bonuses as kids get signed, academy, schoolboy, apprentice, and the scouts as well. Well, it frightened the life out of him because it's all outlay. And he went, Sits, you got to get real. He said, the gate money, it's He said, I want a wage bill, son, of $5,000 a week. He said, I don't care if you have 20 players on 250 quid a week or 10 players on 500 quid a week. I said, well, Barry, if you've got 10 players, it means you ain't got a goalkeeper. He didn't like things like that. You know what I mean? Because he said, well, you know what I mean. I said, yeah, but well, I knew what he meant. He's trying to do everything on the cheap.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
And the way it's transpired is, from what I'm led to believe, I said to him, there's 13 years left on the lease for the ground. That's the first thing that's got to be addressed. Well, after I left, what happened was he negotiated a new lease on the ground, allegedly 999 years. So there's 969 years left on it because I've been gone 30 years. But it's in his name or in his company's name. And what he does, he rents the pitch back to the first team, right, for them to play their games there, which is a farce. Because the lease of the ground belongs to the football. Like the Emirates belongs to Arsenal. It don't belong to Arteta or the chairman. They don't rent the pitch to the first team. It belongs to the fans and it belongs to Arsenal.
That's it.
Right. So that's been one of my gripes all along. And anyway, I think he gave me a year off when they got relegated non-league, when Edinburgh took them up. He gave me a year off of the rent to make them competitive.
Right.
But with regards to the original point about Patsy Holland, he said, well, who do you want to bring in as your number two? So I was thinking, can't we make use of Glenn Cockrell's wages? He said, have him as a player, assistant manager. I said, he's got no coaching experience. I said, he's very, I said, Glenn's very well respected. He's a good professional. I said, he's a good guy. I said, he'd give you an honest performance. I said, but you need someone detached because I've been through that. I said, I've been trying to coach players who used to be teammates like Terry Howard and Danny Carter and Paul Hild, right? I said, so it's going to be very difficult for him. I said, I want to bring in Pat Holland. He's youth team coach at Spurs at the moment. And I think Vanners was still the boss. I said, he's worked under Terry Venables. I said, and he would have come on. I said, but even when he was here, I worked under him here. I said, we got on really well. We bounced off each other really well. He's a good coach. He's got that West Ham pedigree from John Lyle when he got there and played in the cup final and all the bumfluffery. I said, and we'll bounce off each other. Most importantly, I said, we know each other well enough. I say, Pat's turn it in, or he'll say to me, Sits, and he'll hold me back if I'm going too far. I said, because we've got that kind of, oh, no, okay. Then we got beat to Brentford. The door comes crashing open. And he says, Sits, there's no easy way to say this. We've got to part company. I've got, you're not high profile enough. Regardless of the results, you've managed in a very difficult period, a very difficult era, which no one takes into account. He said, you've been on I didn't know nothing, but he said, I've got to bring someone in more high profile. Well, he'd already gone for Billy Bonds, who said a straightforward no,
Right.
allegedly. I found out a story that he'd promised me a deal, and at the same time he was interviewing people behind me back. And that allegedly he interviewed Tony Pulis. He used to have an office at the Waldorf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because the cabbies, used to come out. You lot having a cup of tea? Does anyone want to do some work? I need to get to Liverpool Street. Right, so that's how he think. That's how he used to carry on. And but Tony Pulis stood up after 4 or 5 minutes and said, anyway, Barry, thanks for your time. This is all alleged. I'm not sure if it can be. He went on to manage Gillingham first before he had relative success at Stoke.
Yeah.
And being renowned for difficult to play against at Stoke and upsetting the apple cart and upsetting a few top Johnnies at Stoke. Anyway, he said, Barry, thanks for your time. Well, where are you going? He said, I thought we was having a meeting. He said, well, I think we can conclude the meeting, Barry. He said, you don't need a manager. You are the manager. And he walked out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So fair play to him, because he sussed out within 3-4 minutes that he's very hands-on. Translation for control freak.
Yeah, micromanager, control freak.
Yeah, micromanaging thing. But that's open to conjecture. I mean, I didn't have a lot to do with him, because while I was trying to go about my daily business, him and his people were going through the books, which is how he come up with the wage bill's got to be $5,000 a week, because there's not enough money coming through the gates. So I basically put the final nail in my own coffin. Very, 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 very long-winded answer by saying that I wanted Pat Holland as my number 2. I think he had the job for about 8 months, maybe 9 months, and they sacked him.